Welcome, true crime lovers. This is Underage and Full of Rage.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Underage and Full of Rage, the podcast where the convicted are minors and their crimes are anything but. I am your host, Becky, and with me, as always, is my co host, Adam.
Hello.
And today's story is going to be about Brittni Patter. It's the year 2000, and in Magnolia, Arkansas, Brittni Patter was an only child to parents Vanita and Thomas Tommy Patter. She's 15 years old, and friends and family described her as a good student who played clarinet in the school's band and was also a part of the color guard. She was a friend to everyone she met, and she was known to go through life with no fear. It was said that she was the type of girl to face every challenge thrown her way head on. She was strong willed with a tendency to be outspoken and at times could be impulsive, but again, what teenager really isn't, you know?
Yeah.
Brittni had a sweetness to her that was definitely hidden behind rebellion and sarcasm, which made me laugh because I think that's not only typical of teenagers, but I was also a huge smartass at that age, so I totally related. As a little girl, she loved things like Peter Pan and Scooby Doo, and as a teenager, she decorated her room with daisies and an overwhelmingly amount of candles. Which, thinking back to the year 2000, I don't know about you because you're
Totally normal. It's
okay.
totally normal.
I was gonna
There
say
was
because
all
you're
those weird round candles that had all the designs on the outside and shit that would glow.
I had a cool like floating one that was like a turtle and stuff, and you could put it in like a cup of water and it would sit on top
Yeah.
and everything. Yeah, so like, and I was gonna say like I feel like daisy print was also huge back then.
I don't remember that. I remember like candles fucking being everywhere.
Bed Bath and Beyond used to have the best candles,
Mhm.
and then they just obviously stopped selling them. But oh, I miss their candles. So Brittni wasn't one to like seek attention either, and from a very young age, it was apparent that she was very unselfish. She was very giving, and apparently, she loved to share. Her mom shared a story about how when Brittni was in elementary school, her mom started working there, and one day she found out that Brittni had been sharing her lunch with another girl. And when asked about it, Brittni just said that she was sharing her lunch because this girl never had one of her own, which is not sweet
That's really nice.
like of a young kid. Like that's just so sweet because elementary school she's got to be at most what 10, 11 if it was like sixth grade.
Yeah.
So
That's
well, this
crazy.
is so nice.
That's a good kid.
Right. Just selfless. Like you usually don't find kids who are completely selfless like that. So, another aspect of being a teenager is obviously the confusing world of significant others. And at this time, Brittni did have an on again, off again boyfriend named Matt Elliott. Matt Elliott was 16 and he attended the Magnolia High School. He was a friendly, sociable, fun guy who was on a path to become a preacher and was actually on a path to joining the ministry. He really dove into this in the summer of 1999, and he actually began teaching Sunday school and had even started performing some sermons at his church. According to Matt, both him and Brittni were religious. So when they decided to sleep together in December of 1999, they both had a lot of guilt over it. And this is a total side note here because Matt claims a lot on behalf of Brittni. And spoiler alert, Brittni is unfortunately no longer with us to confirm or deny these claims. So whenever Matt speaks for her, we do have to take it with a huge grain of salt because we don't know how truthful it is.
I get that.
So when Brittni approached Matt one day and told him that she was pregnant and the baby was his, this sent him into another realm. He quickly saw all his goals and dreams dissipate as this news shattered his world. However, Brittni was in another relationship and had no interest in keeping this baby or maintaining an intimate relationship with Matt, and she told him so. So, one would think this news would be a relief to the 16-year-old preacher in training, but wrong. According to Matt, Brittany's only request was that he help with the abortion, which seems reasonable since they are both responsible for the pregnancy. And unfortunately, for some reason, which I can't seem to understand, he was not relieved. And instead, Matt saw this as a rejection, which I'm confused about. These feelings of rejection led him to see Brittni in a different light. And he said he started seeing her more as an enemy now. And with the weight of this information and the reality of the situation, he found himself in was like, wait, what did I just write? He found himself struggling with what to do. Sorry about that. Um, He stated that at the time he didn't feel comfortable going to his parents, and with the fear that this pregnancy would complicate his goals of going to the ministry, he began to concoct this plan of killing Brittni. Again, I am very
Because that's a great way
Oh yeah, God doesn't
to
care
get
about murder.
right into the ministry.
Didn't you know God doesn't care about murder?
What the fuck?
But I'm also confused by this because she didn't want to keep it. So how does that mess up any of your plans? Right? What are you talking about?
Yeah, what plan? Like,
There are no plans to be destroyed.
you're not gonna have like, yeah, I don't.
It's not like she's going through with it and you're going to be held responsible to help take care of it.
Yeah.
So that's the thing I don't understand. And
like, how devout are you if you're sticking your dick raw in some chick? Like, I'm just saying.
Well,
I'm just saying.
They don't believe in birth control. Don't you remember? You don't believe in birth control, but abortions are okay? You're putting words in my mouth. Like, you don't remember it?
Oh, shit.
So Matt also claimed that, and I don't believe this one, he claims that Brittni backed him kind of into a corner and told him that if he didn't help with the abortion, she was going to tell her parents that he raped her. I don't buy this. I think this is totally his way of trying to downplay what he did.
Like that sounds like complete bullshit.
Right? Yeah. And since Matt felt he couldn't go to his parents, he did pretty much what every kid does and, confided in his close friend, William Davis. William and Matt had been friends since the first grade, so it's no surprise that Matt felt he could trust him with not only the information regarding Brittni being pregnant, but also about his plans to quote unquote take care of her. The two started brainstorming, and the initial plan was to shoot Brittni outside of her home with a shotgun. But then they realized that shooting her would probably be too loud, so Matt suggested using a crossbow. But the more he thought about it, the less he liked that idea. So finally, Matt decided that an aluminum rod William owned would be the weapon of choice, and William agreed. However, Matt would have to do some modifying to it to ensure he was able to maintain a solid grip on the pipe. So he wrapped one end of it with duct tape to create some friction. It's kind of like a makeshift bat, if you want to think of it that way. That's how I looked at it.
Okay.
William also agreed to supply Matt with large plastic sheets that William got from the grocery store he worked at, and William even helped Matt dig a grave to put Brittni in afterwards. And even though William stated he never believed Matt was actually going to kill her, he still thought it was important to make sure the grave was big enough for a human body to fit. And to check this, William hopped right on into that grave and laid down, ensuring the grave was in fact big enough for a body to fit.
That is so warped. That
Morbid.
is so warped. And I'm like, the aluminum thing is blowing me away. Because
Why?
aluminum's known for being very light and strong. Whereas like an aluminum bat like got some weight to it and stuff. Whereas like I feel like aluminum pipe might not be that heavy. Might not have that much oomph.
I see what you mean.
saying?
So you would think you would choose something a little bit heavier,
Like a steel pipe.
or like a solid like wood, like baton or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I see what you're saying.
Exactly.
But if it's still like sturdy and heavy, so
I mean, I'm
it could
not
do
saying,
damage,
like,
right?
Yeah, I would assume so. I'm just saying, like, it's.
Well, maybe that's why he picked something light, because he physically couldn't hold anything heavier.
Oh, that's true.
If you think about it,
Yeah,
I mean,
touche.
he's only 16. He might not be.
Well,
he
I
might
mean,
be a
like,
tiny 16-year-old. I don't really know.
Okay.
I mean, when you look at the pictures actually of him, he looks like twerpish. So I can picture him being 16 and being like,
Gotcha.
like really thin and type of,
Gotcha.
So I could see him not being able to lift that much. That might be why he felt comfortable using it.
I gotcha.
So,
Okay.
Also, even though he didn't think Matt was actually going to go through with it, he also agreed to be the alibi that Matt had set up, which consisted of the two boys going camping. So he was like,
But you didn't think he was going to do it.
yeah. So, and I don't know, it's hard to say, because I feel like back in those days, sometimes if you're like that kid that's just like a yes person because you just want to fit in and you don't want to tell you know what I mean, that maybe he just continued to go along. But then there's like the whole thing about like, did you really have to get into the grave just to make sure, like, you know what I mean? It's
You couldn't roughly gauge it, like,
or just say, yeah, that's fine.
It looks like,
Yeah, that's good, dude. We're
you
good.
couldn't lay down next to it.
Or just be like, that's good. Yeah, I think it's fine.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Though? You couldn't go next to it.
That's true too. You had to get right on in. Yeah. So on January 4th, 2000, both Matt and William told their parents they were going camping. However, they were not alone. William, maybe realizing that the plan was gradually coming to fruition and that maybe Matt was more serious than he had originally thought, he decided to ask his brother in law, Bo, to tag along. So secretly, William was hoping that the presence of Bo would help distract Matt and delay his plan. William was hoping that Bo and him could distract Matt by playing drinking games, but as the night progressed, it would appear that this plan would fail. And as Matt became more intoxicated, his determination to meet up with Brittni became evident. When Matt suggested they go, William said no because he was too drunk and stated that he wasn't going anywhere. William's hope of deterring Matt backfired, as Matt's response to William was, "Fine, I'll do it myself." And with that, a very intoxicated Matt left the campsite to go meet up with Brittni. So, in the early morning hours of January 5th, Matt lured Brittni out of her house by telling her he was going to take her to get an abortion. Before sneaking out, she wrote a note to her parents that stated something had happened and she needed to go take care of it. She grabbed a pillow and a blanket. It's like, oh, that's just image is just like you're so young.
Yeah.
You're right. Like a security blanket and pillow. Like that's just that image right there is just how that just reminds you of how like 16 is old but young all at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's just that's that
At the
reminder.
time you think it's old, but when you
Yes, but when you look back,
hindsight,
you're like babies.
yeah.
16-year-olds so young. And that just like that image right there just reminds you of it. So she grabs her pillow and blanket and she left her house and she got into Matt's car. On the way, Matt pulled over at an oil well site and told Brittni that he needed to first change his license plate because he didn't want his car to be able to be identified when they showed up at the clinic. And before we continue, I have to ask, are there clinics that are open for random 2 a.m. abortions?
I have no idea.
And I'm like, maybe now because they're, but in 2000? Or just in general? No, in general. Maybe not even now. I don't know. I just feel like that's odd, right?
I think it's really weird, but you never know.
That's true.
I mean,
I didn't like. Well, again, my bad. I didn't really look into it because
I mean, shit. There were Home Depots back in New York that were open like 24 hours.
Yeah, but
I told you at the time I was online at like 2:00 in the morning. There were people like buying fucking cement and shit.
I feel like though everything in New York is 24. I feel like there's so much that's just unnecessarily 24 hours.
That's true. Or maybe it wasn't 24 hours. Maybe it was just open late as shit. And it was really late. I don't know. It was an odd time for people to be buying cement. I remember that.
I mean, depending on what they're up to, it might have been very fitting.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the verdict's still out on that one. So
where is this, Arkansas? I couldn't see that.
Right, like a little town in Arkansas.
I couldn't see
because I don't think. Now I don't remember. I don't think Magnolia was that big of a town when I was like researching it.
I couldn't even see that shit being in like Little Rock.
Little Rock, Arkansas. I can't help but think of that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was sidetracking.
Okay, so back to it. As he gets out of his car, he grabs the rod he borrowed from William and walked around to the passenger side to where Brittni was. And now I found some sources stating she got out to help him, and other sources do not mention her getting out of the car. But the way this unfolds, it just to me makes more sense that she herself was outside of the car. So I'm just going to go with that because to me, this is what makes sense, and you'll see why. So she too got out as he walked around the car. Like that's what makes the most sense. And then as he walked around the car with the pipe in his hand, he just hit her in the head, directly in the head. She immediately falls to the ground. And now she's probably confused and obviously hurt, but she's clearly not dead. And he realizes his plan is completely derailed because he originally thought, which he did admit to, that he would just hit her and she would die. And in my mind, that was very Kemper-esque of him in the thought process because that's how Kemper was.
Yeah.
He just thought, oh, yeah, you just like put your hand around their throat and they die, or you just stab them in the chest and they're dead.
I wonder if it's because it was an aluminum pipe.
Oh, because it was so light. Like if it was something heavier, cracked her good, at least knocked her out.
Yeah.
But she wasn't even knocked out.
Like, depending on how thick it is and everything.
Yeah, good point. So when he realizes that the one blow didn't do it, he chooses to hit her again. And he continues to beat Brittni in the head with this rod a total of 17 times. And while he does this, he said that she said, quote, "Matt, please," end quote. But he didn't stop. After bludgeoning her, he sees headlights, so he runs into the woods. These headlights belong to William and Bo, who pull up but don't see anyone. I I'm assuming they pull up and they saw his car, but they didn't see Brittni laying next to it, and clearly he was gone. So since they didn't see anybody, they leave and go back to the nearby campsite they were all staying at. After they leave, Matt eventually makes his way back to Brittni, where he discovers she's not dead. Somehow she has survived and she is barely hanging on. Matt realizes this, decides to get in his car, and he then proceeds to run over her head, officially killing Brittni at the oil well site. How awful.
That is horrible.
This part it gets worse because although I don't know if necessarily worse, but like the response is what is so weird. Like, it's freaky. So when he was asked in court why he didn't get her help after seeing she was still alive, his response was, quote, "She was past assisting," end quote. Is that not such an eerie way to respond? Who says that? Who talks like that?
Nobody talks like that.
She was past assisting. Who says that?
Nobody.
Right?
I feel like you're trying to, like, I don't know. Why would you say, like, what? Nobody talks like that.
So, like, I when I read that, there was just such a good feeling. Like, there's a yuck factor to that statement.
Yeah.
Like, you're a lunatic. So, Matt felt the situation with Brittni was a problem that needed to be dealt with, and the more he tried to figure out...
And I'm sorry to cut you off.
What's up?
And also, how do you know she was too far gone? You thought you were going to hit her in the head once and fucking kill her.
Oh, yeah, now you're a doctor.
Now you're a fucking expert?
Now you know. You're such a good point. Oh, my God, that's such a good fucking point.
You serious?
Like, who the fuck are you, dude?
Serious?
What a moron. Oh, God, that's such a good point. He tried as he tried to figure out what to do, the more his brain pointed to killing her as pretty much his only option. He had convinced himself that he needed to kill her, but admitted later that when he decided murder was the answer, he didn't fully understand what murdering someone meant. And now, for me, this is totally opinion-based. I don't know. You're 16, hardly a baby. So even though I just called them babies, but you know what I mean. Like, so in my mind, as a 16-year-old, maybe you rationalized it in your immature brain that it was the answer, and that I get. But I'm sorry, at 16, you know what murdering someone means. So to say otherwise, in my opinion, feels as if you're trying to downplay your decision.
Yeah, at that point in life, you know, like, when somebody dies, they don't come back.
Like, yeah, like if I kill this person,
you know that's the end game.
Yeah, like you know what murder means.
Yeah.
However, in your feeble little brain, you probably rationalize, yes, this makes sense. Like you make it a logical answer that, yes, but don't sit there and say you don't know what it means. That's bullshit.
Yeah, it's a load of crap.
Thank you. So sometimes I feel like I might be too harsh because I'm a very like black and white person with things. So that's why like it's nice to have somebody be like, no, I get it.
Yeah,
or
I get that.
To tell me like, no, you're crazy. Like, shut the fuck up.
I feel like at that point in life, you know that like somebody dies, they don't.
Yeah.
There's no reset button on fucking life, you know.
Right. Okay. So after killing Brittni, he got in his car so he could move it, from the murder site. And he ended up leaving it along the dirt road that he took to get to the actual oil site. So from here, he ends up heading back to the campsite on foot. And as he approaches, he sees Bo and William, and he tells them he needs their help. William stated that when Matt returned to the campsite, he noticed he had blood on his face, and it gave him the chills. William and Bo, without Matt, go back to the oil well site, and this time they find Brittni laying there, and she is clearly deceased. They waste no time and call the police and report what happened. Matt immediately confesses to the murder of Brittni Patter, but he would not be the only one charged for it. Bo was not involved in any type of way, so he was cleared, rightfully so. In fact, I'm glad he was actually there because if he hadn't been, I cannot say with confidence that William would have had enough balls to call the cops on his friend. I just see the night going very differently had his brother in law not been there to be like, we're calling the fucking cops.
Yeah. Because when you have a yes man there, it's not going to be, hey, we should probably do the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, through questioning, it was revealed that Matt, although acted alone in the murder, wasn't entirely alone in the lead up, and it became very clear that both William and him had a huge part in the planning and execution of the vicious attack on Brittni. So, both boys ended up being convicted of capital murder and received life without parole. But since they were both under 18 at the time, remember Matt was 16 and William was 17, they both qualified to have their cases reviewed after the 2012 Supreme Court ruling. So, after review, both were granted resentencing trials, and William was granted a new sentence of 40 years. And in Arkansas, anyone with a Class Y felony is required to serve at least 50% of his or her sentence, and they must also be within good standing as a prisoner before being eligible for release. So technically,
You're a prisoner. You should be in fucking good standing all the time.
I know. That's one of my frustrations. And when they're like, "Oh, but they're such a good you should be." I totally agree with that because it's like it's such a different environment in there. Like you either break all the rules or you just comply. And in cases like that, I feel like it's easier just to comply because you're constantly being controlled. But when you're out left to your own vices, like who's to say you can still maintain that? So, yeah, I get so annoyed with that. So, but I guess then there's the other side of it, like by complying and doing good, like at least you're showing some
You're
type
showing, yeah.
of I don't know, progress or like you're willing to change. I don't know. I don't really know like the other side of that argument, I guess. I don't
It's
know.
out there. It's somewhere.
But I have that same feeling like, no, that's the point. You're supposed to be following the
Yeah.
rules. So technically, 2020 actually would have been 20 years, which would fulfill the 50%. But William ended up being released in 2018, just shy of the 50%, and only served a total of 18 and a half years. William stated that he felt rehabilitated after serving that length of time in prison and shared that he was remorseful for the family. And even though he knew about the plan, and was, heavily involved in the preparation, supplied the murder weapon, gave Matt large plastic sheets for cleanup, helped dig her grave, and went camping with Matt to help solidify an alibi, William did maintain that he truly thought Matt was never going to actually kill Brittni. I think the only thing saving William was that when it finally came time to put the plan into action, he did try to convince Matt not to go through with it. And, so much so that he asked his brother in law to come camping to assist in distracting Matt, which, again, unfortunately didn't really end up working. And judging by his statement after his release, I would like to believe that he truly realizes now that at that point, his efforts to stop this was just like too little too late, because he did go on to admit that when he was initially sentenced to life, he was actually angry, but eventually he did understand like he was wrong in the role he played and stated he should have taken more responsibility to tell someone about everything that was going on. So,
Props to him.
yeah, like it's one of those where I always go back and forth. I'm like, but can you really believe it? Or are they just saying what they need to say to get out? But like, that's why I said, like, I hope he truly does believe that.
Yeah.
I hope he truly thinks that. He was also understanding that Matt chose to testify against him during his trial because, again, Matt was only 16 and facing death. And William said that he understood testifying against him was Matt's only way out. So I don't know. He seems like he's just made a lot of acceptance to like be able to move past.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me. And Vanita, remember, Brittany's mom, she actually went and met with William before his resentencing took place. And during this meeting, Vanita forgave him for his role in her daughter's death. And it was reported that there were tears shed, and this meeting that ended in forgiveness provided both Vanita and William with some form of closure that they both needed to be able to move on. So that's good. That's definitely good. Matt's resentencing, this one went a little differently. He chose to testify on his own behalf and stated that the crime was senseless, and in retrospect, he understands how much Brittni and him needed to get an adult involved in the situation. He also went on to say that Brittni was more than just an, on again, off again girlfriend. She was someone he loved and his friend. This is where he claimed he didn't understand the finality of murdering her and how he didn't think of how violent it would be until he hit her in the head. On the stand, he said he wished he would have thought about his unborn child, which again doesn't make sense because she wasn't going to keep it. It's so infuriating. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's so infuriating. The only thing I agree with, or that I think was truthful from him, was the fact that it was senseless. Because it was. In my mind, you killed her because you didn't want to help pay for an abortion, and that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. Is that just me?
Fucking insane.
That's all she asked for. Help me pay for an abortion. Done. We're done. Like, I don't. Why would you think about your unborn child?
Well, let me kill you instead. That makes sense.
But again, like, why would that even be, like, why are you claiming that now? Because thinking of your unborn child does nothing, because she was going to get an abortion anyway, so this child was not going to be a part of your lives.
Yeah.
There's no reason for you to, like, it's not like she wanted to keep it, and as a result, you ended up killing her because you didn't want her to keep it. Then that's entirely different.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
But
I see what you're saying. See what you're saying.
There's no reason to think of it in those terms because she wasn't going to keep it. She basically wanted to have the abortion so it didn't fuck up both of their lives, and then she can go on continuing dating her boyfriend. She had a boyfriend.
Crazy.
It makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. It is senseless.
Completely. His defense team relied heavily on his age at the time of the murder, and they brought... Okay, so I'm sorry. They brought a lot of character witnesses, many of which happened to be the employees of the correctional facility he is incarcerated at. His mom, as well as a preacher and friend, were also called on Matt's behalf. The defense also brought to the stand Dr. Garrett Andrews, who is a neuropsychologist, and he testified that the 16-year-old brain and mind is not as developed as that of an adult, and that sometimes the immaturity ends up affecting both the decision-making and rational thought process. He also went on to say that when you consider this and then add alcohol to the mix, it only amplifies the symptoms. And again, I get that, but it does not negate the fact that there are how many 16-year-olds walking the face of the earth dealing with a lot of fucking shit. They drink.
Worse stuff. Way fucking worse stuff.
Drink. Some may even do drugs, and they do not go on to violently murder someone they claim to care about. So again, I think the 16-year-old brain, because of its immaturity, rationalizes murder as the answer, but I don't agree with that a fully competent and functioning 16-year-old doesn't grasp what the action of murder is. I'm sorry, I just don't. I don't.
Are you sure?
This case, like reading it and like all like the rebuttals and stuff or the excuses, I was just gradually getting angrier and angrier.
I gotcha.
So clearly that's coming out right now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Clearly I have a trigger.
The dentist, right? Oh, amazing. Okay. So Matt's attorney also made a point to say that Will never said, quote unquote, don't do it, which is such a fucking cop out because now you're trying to like blame William for not... Right?
For not stopping you?
Yeah, like what the fuck is that? Who cares? Like that's irrelevant at this point, right? Irrelevant.
Yeah.
Totally irrelevant.
And even if he did, was that going to be like your wake up of, better not do this? That's, it's a good thing he told me no.
And,
what is that?
Yeah, and would he have even listened? Like, come on. That's bullshit. But I guess at that point, you're probably just grasping at anything. Right?
Yeah.
So, oh God. So when his mom testified, she said that her marriage was crumbling and that their home life was filled with problems that created an environment where her son couldn't come to her. And this is just sad to me because I feel like she's totally blaming herself, and I understand her mindset, but this is not her fault by any means. I'm sorry. It's not.
No, absolutely not.
And I just feel terrible that she's definitely taking on that burden. Like that's just so sad.
It's horrible and she shouldn't.
Yeah. And during her testimony, she started to talk about how Matt hurt them terribly, meaning the Patter family, and how it changed all of their lives, and that they all, are feeling this together. And this statement immediately made Vanita say, quote, "But you get to see your baby and I don't," end quote. For this, the judge sternly told Vanita to hold her comments. And this just made me think of how remaining quiet during court proceedings has to be so fucking hard for families of the victims. And I feel like I would probably get kicked out within the first 5 minutes of the defense plea. Like,
I feel like you'd be the video of the person jumping over the little divider at the person.
like leaping,
Yeah,
trying to go for their
when you
throat.
seen those videos when they jump over and they just start hammering. I feel like that's
trying to choke a bitch out. Like,
yeah.
oh God. Like, yeah, I don't know how anybody remains quiet. And it's totally understandable that so many don't. Like, how do you just sit there?
I wouldn't be able to.
It's gotta be so hard. So at the time of this resentencing, Matt had already served 20 years. So the defense made it clear that the goal here wasn't about guilty or not guilty, and it wasn't about asking for time that wasn't deemed enough. So, for instance, his attorney stated that to ask for 10 years wouldn't be enough, and to even ask for 30 wouldn't be enough. And that the purpose of this resentencing trial was to ask the jury to give him 40 years as opposed to the original sentencing of life without parole. This is actually way more strategic. And personally, I feel like it was a little sneaky because they are presenting this as if they too feel he should be behind bars and no one is saying he isn't guilty here, which is why anything less than 40 is just not enough, blah, blah, blah. Because if you remember, Arkansas law for Class Y felonies, Class Y felonies, you have to serve at least 50% of your time and be within good standing as an inmate, which, based on the plethora of prison employees that spoke positively on Matt's behalf, clearly he is an outstanding prisoner. And if he was to be resentenced to 40 years, he would have met his 50% requirement already, making him eligible for parole immediately upon receiving this resentence.
That's crazy.
So, yes, smart on the defense, but I wonder if anybody else picked that up. That's sneaky.
Is that how that would have worked, though?
Yeah.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. That's exactly how it would have worked. Because he would have been deemed 50% served because he'd already served 20 years, and that was 50% of the 40 years.
I didn't know if like a resentence would affect that.
No, that's why William got out in 2018.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah. So, right? Sneaky. It's a little sneaky. I think it's a little sneaky.
Good attorney.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Smart on the defense. So after 4 days and about 20 hours of testimony, the jury, which consisted of 6 men and 6 women, deliberated for only 30 minutes. And I feel like that's either really good or really bad, right?
Yeah, that's flip the coin. Because
Right?
you're either dead on arrival or you're going home happy, man. There's no in between on that.
Because that means people aren't arguing with one another about what they think, right? Everybody feels the same way.
You good? Yeah. Finish the coffees and go? Okay, cool.
Get out of here in time for dinner. Let's
roll.
So they came back with a unanimous decision for life in prison. So sentenced to the same thing. And hearing the details of the case, I personally think the jury got it right. What do you think?
I'd say so.
Cool. So more importantly, Vanita thought they got it right too. At Matt's resentencing, Vanita told the court, quote, "I don't get to give her hugs anymore. I don't get to have grandchildren, and I never will." Remember, she was an only child. I will never.
That's so sad.
Yeah. I will never get to see her grow into a beautiful woman. I will never get to see her try on wedding dresses, and I will never get to go to a graduation. I just got goosebumps reading that, end quote. She's right. Brittni doesn't get to go on and have a life, whereas he does. He still gets to live his life. He was able to go on and get his GED and a college degree. He was also able to meet his goals and continue his faith and become a preacher and help others. That's exactly what he does in prison. So again, maybe it's in prison, but he's still doing it. And I mean, let's not forget, you did take the life of a girl for no fucking reason.
And yet you still get to preach.
Yeah. So
Jesus really does forgive.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, all for no fucking reason. I am struggling to find the viable reason here because the reasons he gives do not make sense.
No.
They don't add up.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I cut you off?
No. I
Okay.
was just, yeah.
I know when I get heated and I start venting, I can just go. So
No, you're good.
okay, I'm like, so if I cut you off, I apologize. So yeah, this case just like infuriated me every step of the way. So William is out and has been for 7 years now. Not sure what he is doing. I would assume laying low. I couldn't really find anything because when you search William Davis, everything that comes up is actually about a doctor with the same exact name who was convicted this year for killing his patients. So that kind of
What are the odds on that?
so it gets better. It gets better. Hopefully he's being productive though. That's all I can say. Let's just hope for that. This is interesting because it's funny you should say that. Because as for Matt, after being resentenced, he had 30 days to appeal the decision, and I can't find anything to see if whether he did or not. So as far as I can see, he is still serving his time in the Arkansas Department of Corrections. I wrote, also total side note, when you search Matthew Elliott, a former elite runner turned track coach in North Carolina comes up for being arrested and charged with having quote unquote indecent liberties with students.
What the fuck does that mean?
So I don't know if it's the commonality of these names, but what are the odds that there are two other people walking around with these names that also did terrible shit? I genuinely thought that was ironic and random. Isn't that crazy?
Crazy.
Thought it was so. I was just like, wait, what? Because I was like, as you like look, you try, and then you read a little bit more. I'm like, wait, this isn't the same. This is not the same story. This is not the same case. This is not the same person.
That's insane.
Yeah.
What was it? What was it? Liberties? What?
Indecent liberties.
Indecent liberties.
So I don't know if that's just like, is that like
a fucking
dating
diddler.
or is that like flirting or is that more?
I feel like indecent liberties.
Oh, like indecent exposure.
Insinuates a little something more. I don't know.
Interesting. Like maybe they saw each other's parts.
Yeah.
Teachers are so. It is so gross. I feel like more and more. I don't know about you, but I feel like more and more I am seeing stories about teachers and students, and it is weird. It is just odd.
Yeah, it's like might be because of the internet. We can find out more of it now, though.
That is true because now, because now also.
But I don't know. I feel like it's way out of control.
Because I was gonna say you bring up a good point with that because if you think about it, like back in the day, we only had really local news, but with the internet, now you just like I searched a name and found this about somebody in North Carolina.
Get local news from a small town
from everywhere.
Nowhere.
Yeah. So yeah, because you can get like every Herald and everything. So that might be why. Like, do you think this was always happening? I just feel like people are getting.
I don't
grosser.
think it was always happening. I think people are just fucking gross. Bunch of perverts.
Perverts. Okay. All right. Well, that was the terrible and completely unnecessary murder of Brittni Patter. So senseless. But before we go, Adam, lift us up. Lift us higher and higher. As I like screech into everybody's eardrums. Who do you have for us this week?
Paulo and Katya, I believe is how you say their names.
Katya.
I'm just saying it because that's how it looks like it's supposed to be said.
I love the name Katya.
So
it sounds like a Russian spy.
So they were charged with aggravated battery and battery.
How old are these people? Did you look?
No, I didn't.
Get your facts, man.
But so this is in Florida again.
Oh, isn't it always?
Poor so like Florida. Southwest Florida, like you could throw rocks at the Florida Keys.
Oh,
like southwest.
That's where that doll is.
What?
That Robert doll. It's like the haunted doll. It's in that museum in the Keys. I want to go so bad and see it. Gotcha. You can write it letters. It's weird. It's creepy looking. If you look it up, it's really weird looking. Okay, go. Sorry. Distracting.
So obviously it's a beautiful area, right? Beautiful oceans and shit. So people go down there scuba diving, snorkeling and shit. There's some dude who's snorkeling and apparently got a little too close to a dock where these two, it sounds like, were fishing. They start yelling at this guy, telling him he doesn't have the right to snorkel in the area. He's got to leave. Blah blah blah. Fight ensues,
Of course.
and these two pop this guy in the head with fishing poles.
Oh my God, they beat it while he's in the water. They're smacking him with fishing
The
poles.
cops showed up and he was bleeding from his fucking head.
Oh, poor, he's probably like a
and
tourist.
his family was hanging out in the boat, like offshore, like that's what he got off of, the little boat or whatever. Like trash.
I was gonna say he's totally a
Fucking
tourist,
trash.
probably because that's what they do, and they tell him the snorkel. I bet you anything they were illegally fishing.
Yeah, they probably did have permits or some
They
shit like
probably
that.
didn't even belong there, or you're probably not supposed to be fishing there. I could totally see them getting in trouble for that.
Whacked in the head with a fucking fishing pole,
Oh,
snorkeling too close to a
that
dock.
shit's gotta hurt. Fishing poles are like
Those things whip.
yeah,
They whip.
exactly. I'm thinking of like when in Community,
like an antenna.
when he's like when you pick the branch and the grandma beats
Yeah,
Britta.
the twitch.
Yeah, that's
Twitch.
what I'm thinking. That shit's gotta fucking hurt. What are they made out of? Because aren't they like metal or some shit?
Yeah, and fiberglass and stuff.
Oh, that poor man. Well,
He went to the hospital for it.
I was gonna say at least he's got a story for the rest of time. Like,
It's
hey,
one hell of a
kids,
story.
remember? I bet you it'll probably become like a family like thing at Thanksgiving.
Remember those assholes who fucking hit me in the head with the fishing poles?
Remember when Daddy got beat with a fishing
Trying
pole?
to fucking snorkel, look at a bunch of beautiful fish. A bunch of fucking pricks hit me in the head.
Oh God! I wonder if if there's like another lawsuit where he sued for like the medical bill.
I didn't see anything about no civil stuff.
I wonder.
But
That's fine. Fucking idiots. You can't fish or you can't
Trash.
snorkel here. Well, on that note, thank you for listening. And until next week, make your dash count and don't be a douche.
have a good one.
See ya.